Well, it's great to be here. Hello, everybody. It's very hot, and I'm going to take a visual journey, and we'll see where it goes. This is, of course, one of the interesting dilemmas, an old building Huashan and something very new happening there. That's very symbolic of what's happening all over the country. So let's look more closely at the questions that I've been asked to address. I first need to thank the Urban Regeneration Office, who brought me here and gave me the opportunity to understand more about Taipei in particular and Taiwan in general. And the result of that was a publication last year which was called Talented Taipei and the Creative Imperative. And I will refer to that on occasions during my talk. But I think we could also say talented Taiwan, talented Kaohsiung, Tainan, etc., etc. So why is this issue so important, in my opinion? I think it is a matter of survival for Taiwan as a country. And if we focus on Taipei, the big danger of this issue, which is really quite urgent, is that Taipei, for example, could move to a third-level city or even a fourth-level city. And what that means is that its influence in the region declines. It also means that the other cities in Taiwan decline too. And that's why, for me, the talent agenda is the central issue. And the task is to ensure that obviously things do not go downhill. Now, one of the interesting points to remember is that 15 years ago there was a series of studies on why people go to places, and they usually went for a job first and the city second. Now the majority of people choose a city first and then the job within that, and that completely transforms the way cities need to think of how attractive they are and how they need to reflect themselves in the outside world and what sort of resonance they need to create. So this issue of the city and what it is like is important because you don't want your young people to leave forever. You want them to leave for a while. You want them obviously to be educated elsewhere, but you also want them, in a sense, to come back. The problem is, as we well know, is that many are not coming back for a series of reasons that you are all aware of. And I've seen many of these younger people. This happened to be last Sunday in one of the design shows, and some of the products and inventions and innovations I saw were clearly very interesting. The problem is, of course, what is the next step for each of these people? Because the link between, for example, these creative individuals and industry is incredibly weak. Perhaps industry doesn't fully understand some of the potential that is expressed through these people and so on. And as you can see, there are many of them. I mean, I don't know how many people were there on Sunday, but perhaps 5,000 or so. But what's of particular interest was, of course, international universities and people were there. This is two people from Milan talking to a Taiwanese woman, and she may find Italy more attractive than here. I don't know, we'll see. So that's one of the main issues. The other thing one can see, for example, last Sunday there was the Makers Fair, is the vibrancy and the desire for people also to make things again. As you all know, that the Makers movement, which is a movement where people are realizing that, again, to do things, to make things yourself, is a key question. So all I'm really saying is there's a sense of vibrancy there. The question really is there a ladder of opportunity? Can people move from one step to the next? So the central question or big issue is, what about the distinctiveness of Taiwan? Clearly, Tai Fung, is it that right? The dumplings are very distinctive, they're wonderful, they taste wonderful and so on. That's one element of your distinctiveness. But there's lots of other things that are distinctive about you. Now, the main problem I see is that the cities we love, and this is also true for the UK, we cannot build anymore because the rules and regulations and the economic dynamics push against it or even forbid it. Now, in the case of Taipei, clearly, distinctiveness, this is New York, Robert Indiana, this is Taipei, Robert Indiana. That's quite distinctive, but perhaps not distinctive enough. It's okay. But what's more interesting is, of course, the street culture and alley culture for which you are known for, which is expressed in all sorts of strange and interesting ways as you wander through the city behind the big streets. And it's expressed here in the electronic quarter as an example, and so on. Now, the danger is that this, which is part of your livability, as is 7-Up and all those wonderful things that your version of 7-Up does, 7-Eleven, not 7-Up, 7-Eleven, 7-Eleven does, is obviously part of the livability, as indeed is your new U-bike thing, which I have to congratulate the city, that your U-bike is more used than all the other bike systems I've seen in Copenhagen, Paris, London, and so on. I mean, look here, practically all of them are actually used, so congratulations on whoever's riding a bike. But the point is, there are obviously attempts to create new distinctiveness, but there was an interesting exhibition in Dihua Street, which was about the block attack. And the block attack is really about creating structures that obviously earn money. They earn money individually because you can create more value added by more stories. But do they add value to the city as a whole? They probably do, and they probably don't. They may reduce the creativity capital, but they may increase financial capital. They may reduce the heritage capital. So when we look at the development of a city, we should look at all of these things together in terms of their impact. So here's an example of the block attack. We're in the electronics quarter, and we have this fine-grained city where lots of interactions and transactions are taking place. And then this type of monstrosity is put in. And I think these are sort of roles and responsibilities also for cultural ministries and departments, because ugliness and beauty is one of the most important things to consider. And I believe that, for example, cultural departments should not only restrict themselves to art, very important art, but also should be concerned with how the physical environment as a whole looks. So next to that big box is the street that looks like this, and you can see that it is impossible to interact. And the main point about a city, as you know, is interaction. So this is the distinctiveness, or one element of the distinctiveness, that I think is quite important. And I think that is in fact a cultural question. And this is why people are attempting projects like the vertical village. And what that means is basically to try to create the atmosphere that villages have into the big city. Now, if we summarize through all over the world 5 phrases that might encapsulate what great places are like, you'll probably say that the 5 components are: they are places of anchorage, i.e. a sense of stability, heritage, tradition, the past; a place of possibility, a sense of can-do, moving forward, aspiration. They're places where people can connect together, either in the city, between groups, beyond the city. They can move around. A place where they can self-improve and self-realize themselves, and a place of inspiration. I'm simplifying, of course, but that's one way of looking at the aspiration of a city as a whole. And I would say these are timeless principles. So the memory department is probably the Cultural Ministry's heritage department, but I think many others should also be concerned with this issue too. So as I was saying, memory is important, and The beer factory is one example of memory that can be brought into the future in one way or another. Possibility is, like here, the library in Singapore has a possibility room. I don't know what they do in the possibility room, but lots of people were walking into the possibility room. They were doing probably strange things. Bridging cultures and connection. That, of course, sometimes is difficult in Taiwan. So many people have said how difficult it is to bring outsiders in, to cross-fertilize with Taiwanese creativity and so on. And then places of learning, self-realization, and perhaps inspiration occasionally. This indeed is the cafe of the Venice Biennale, which won the prize for the best artwork. So it's interesting that the cafe won the prize of the best artwork in Venice rather than an artwork on a wall. So what we're really talking about is places that are walkable, well-designed, connected, lively, but also calm. Great places do contradictory things at the same time.